Hi everyone, welcome to the 10th edition of the RSS with myself, Rashid Saleh, and of course, alongside with me, ever present is Jason Sim, aka the Kuchingite. And although he still doesn't know what he wants to be talking about for this edition of the RSS, we'll probably end up talking about some certain things. So what will happen is with this episode, obviously, the Sukma has just been over in Sarawak, and then I want to ask you a question. Usually towards the end, I mean, when we're talking about the final quarter of things happening in Sarawak, what is it usually that happens? Because we've already had the rainforest is over, the most of the big events is in festivals. We've got Sonic. Is it Borneo Sonic?
Yeah, it was a Borneo Sonic
coming up. What do people look forward to when it comes to being in Sarawak, especially because I think that's one question a lot of people ask whenever they want to have things done, or if they want to go and visit, for example. And that's something I've always wanted, because I've only been home for 3 years. Yeah. So as someone from the outside, whenever they want to go and visit Sarawak, especially towards the end of the year, because we've got Christmas coming up, we've got all the other stuff we've got, So what happens in the final quarter for people in Sarawak? What do we look forward to in terms of, looking forward for that final quarter of the year?
Yeah, I've got no idea. I can tell you, normally at the end of the year, what do we have? Like, we have a couple of events, maybe a small events, Christmas parade, New Year countdown, but this year probably we're gonna have like the Borderlands outdoor festival. It's gonna be the Borneo Sonic, as you said. So I don't know. This is probably like as good as it gets for
there's one festival that you failed to mention, and as Sarawakians, I wouldn't say we're very proud of it, but it's very different to West Malaysia, and that's Oktoberfest.
Oh, is it? Yeah, I don't know. Do we have Oktoberfest?
There's also one thing that I noted. I was bringing around a friend from West Malaysia during the Kuching Food Festival, which is over now, and he noticed the marked difference in how everything was done, and he was like, you got all types of food, and he said it wouldn't work if it was in West Malaysia. What did you think he meant by that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how well it actually does. I mean, it was reported today that we are just a bit short from the record from last year, so about attendance. So, I remember the mayor was asking people to show up, but I don't know. If you ask me personally, it's not something I really. It's not something marked on my calendar. Maybe I'm not one who goes out. I won't call myself a foodie by any means. But then I don't know. I always thought it should be something that maybe held maybe once a month, twice a month, rather than this one-off event. And I mean, some people do complain that it's a bit overpriced. I can understand, and you can understand the rentals are probably really high for an event like this. But I don't know. I mean, what do you think about Kuching Fest?
I really enjoy it. I mean, the fact that it's once a year is great. I mean, you mentioned that it should be at least once a month. Why is that? Do you think that there's actually a lot more different type of food that we can offer in Sarawak?
I mean, if I were to hear comments, or I don't want to say criticism, but when you ask people who go regularly to these things, they said the main complaint. And Malaysians love to complain, but main complaint is first price, and then second there's a repetition of things. There's the same things a lot of the stalls and stuff like that. And I also just thought it should be maybe a regular kind of food night market. Maybe not like the nightly ones that we have in Bangkok and stuff like that. But I mean, I think monthly, twice a month wouldn't be such a bad thing.
Oh, it's actually funny that you mentioned Bangkok, like Chatuchak and the night markets.
This is job fair and stuff like that, yeah.
Because they have that they have certain of those kind of markets in Semenanjung.
Yeah.
We don't have that. I think because probably we don't have the numbers yet, or the people who do it. But food really does. One, it's a great business. It also brings a lot of people together. But one thing that my friend was saying from Semenanjung is just that he was so not surprised. He was just he saw that there was like halal and non-halal food around, and there was no one made a fuss out of it. And it's something that's so unique to Sarawak, because you had everyone going there. You had everything, because he said if it was in Semenanjung, it'll be like the halal will be on its own, but this one was mixed all together. There were some comments about maybe it should be separated, but I think that sort of takes away the fact that you're able to just look at stuff. It doesn't mean that you have to go. We had a halal non-halal stalls next to each other, but that we don't make an issue out of it.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's so easy to do here rather than do it in Semenanjung?
I mean, I just think just the lack of demographics in Sarawak just allow us to even the same household just allow us to coexist in that way. Where it's I mean, this is an interesting point, because I wonder if tourists from West Malaysia would it bother them that to even buy food that exists next to a non-halal thing? So is this something that we have to adjust for tourists, or should we just leave it the way it is and if you want to just buy it, if you don't then not, So I don't know how do you see it? Because I mean, obviously I'm not Muslim, so I mean it doesn't bother me one bit, right? But I mean, how do you see that?
I mean, again, that's what's unique about being Sarawakian and being in Sarawak, because we don't use that as an issue. I remember mentioning this the last time. It's like we don't see ourselves as divided by religion.
Yep.
We're not even divided by that. We're just divided in terms of the family, because you are this family, that family. Because even in my family, we do have we have Muslims, we have Catholics, we have animists, so everyone coexists, because at the end of the day, the family unit is more important. So that's why I said when it comes to food, it's so funny, because we do have comments coming from West Malaysians who are like, well, why don't they separate it out? It's like, well, we don't need to, because it's not really that important, because we do respect each other anyway. It doesn't have to be shown, we're there, because it's so funny that it's always highlighted, and it becomes more of an issue over in Semenanjung. Whether it's wrong or right, that doesn't matter, because across the South China Sea, where we are different in that sense, and we do respect each other to be able to know, and it is, everyone respects that.
Yep.
So I don't see it as a problem. So when you come to even different type of festivals here, with like Borneo Sonic, you see the dressing in Borneo Sonic as well. How the performers are, and here there's no issue, because people just want to enjoy the music.
Yep.
And the performances.
Yep.
And then if you go over there, then you have this issue where it becomes so it's almost a case of having two Malaysias in one. Yep. Not saying it's wrong, but it's just that we are. I don't like the word tolerant, but we all understand each other. We live together as a family. So the question is right now is, you said, should we maintain it? I think we should, because that's how we roll.
Yeah.
Right. So why should we change the way we do just to fit into other people's ideals? Because that's how we've coexisted, and that's how everything works. Even if you go further up north, there'll be a lot more disparity and difference in how people do things. And I think something like Sukma, with the younger generation coming here, especially from West Malaysia, they get to see for themselves, instead of scrolling through social media.
Yeah.
They get to see how we behave and how we exist, and our people, how we treat each other. And I think that's why stuff like Sukma and all these festivals, really it's not just about people coming over to enjoy and compete and enjoy the festivals. It's also to understand that this is how we Sarawakians behave and is how we work. Do you not agree with that?
Oh yeah, I would agree with that. But obviously, it's no problem for me. It's no problem to even my Muslim family. But then, yeah, if the market from West Malaysia, the tourists that comes here, like if this is how they see it, I mean, yeah, we got to stand our ground, or do we cater to that market?
I think we've in some ways, people come here because they want to see what we're like.
Yeah.
We start being we cater too much, then we'll become like everyone else.
Yeah.
And we'll lose our uniqueness of, of course, our own language and all that. I don't think that'll go away as fast. But yes, I understand we're Malaysian, but what was unique about Malaysia is our diversity. And even more so here in Sarawak, and our cousins, they call it cousins now, in Sabah as well.
Yeah.
So we need to retain that kind of uniqueness, and it's not separation. We're just a different state, and we just happen to be on the island of Borneo.
So when you see an issue like when Terengganu, I think it was Terengganu who didn't send their female gymnasts over, right, because of an issue like when it comes to the uniforms. So, I mean, do you think there's a compromise to be done there, or?
Well, again, to each his own. They didn't even send the women's rugby team. I don't know whether they have one.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do, but they didn't even send their women's.
Apparently, the
rugby
official
team.
reason was because of the attire.
Well,
so,
again, to each their own for their state, because then in that case, then a lot of the sports won't be able to do it either. I mean. Which is, again, we can't say anything because that's not our, it's not our place to say whether they're right or wrong, because it's their state. I mean, if somebody said it in our state, we'd be like, huh?
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Yeah.
There'll probably be an uproar. Hang on a minute, this is for sports. It's not about, we're not treating them like sex symbols. And we've had this case before, especially rhythmic gymnastics.
Yeah.
Because the attire, you're supposed to have all these bling. And I say it bling rather than the what they're wearing, because it's part of their performance.
Yeah.
And it sort of helps. It doesn't help enhance the performance, but it helps with the marks. And people should be even saying, because they're all made up as well, makeup and all. You got kids who are made up, but that's part and parcel of the actual sport. Yeah. Because that's how it's done. So do we also turn around and say, oh, why children being made up? Because we've had that case before. So why they have to have makeup on them?
Yeah.
But it's part and parcel of the sport.
Yeah.
So who are we to unless you go right ban the whole sport, then come on, Commonwealth Games we had girls who won medals, so we know that we're capable of doing well in the sport.
Yeah, without trying to be too political. I mean, I get it from you. Do you agree that, it's all to each his own kind of approach? Like every state have their kind of autonomy to do whatever they want and just have multiple different Malaysias, like kind of like how Indonesia is. So. Do you feel that's a good approach to the way we do things?
Well, I mean, when it comes to sports, again, it's so hard to be. We don't know, unless you lived in Dungun or in Terengganu for one, you understand what it's like, or even in Kota Baru, Kelantan.
Yeah.
I've been to those states. The only state I haven't been to, and apologies, is Perlis.
Yeah. Oh, I have.
I've not been. I've been to every state
Kanga,
except for Perlis. I'd like to go to Kanga one day and say, okay, I've been to every single state in Malaysia. It's the one state, and I've got some friends who are there, especially the Perlis coach Nazruddin. Nazruddin is sorry, nanti I pergi. But yeah, I'm even being political. It's like, well, we can't say because it's their rules. Imagine when we have Sukma in in Terengganu or Kelantan. I'm not sure when was the last time it was there, but again, will there be some leeway in terms of how things are done?
Yeah.
We have to wait and see whether it works or not. But as you can tell, a lot of the major bigger states will always take up Port Sukma because they have the facilities. I'm not saying that Kelantan and Terengganu do not have the facilities. They've got a really good velodrome for cycling because all the really good cyclists come from there.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. We've got road cyclists and track cyclists are usually from Terengganu. So each state has their own strength in terms of. So we obviously have swimming and diving in our state because now we have even our aquatic center.
Yeah.
And of course, so this year you notice that Wilayah second in Sumatra. It's because they've joined obviously Putrajaya, Labuan and FT, which is federal territory. So that's why people say, how come they've had so many medals? Because they've now combined them, which is great because they should be one state as it is anyway. But yeah, saying that.
Labuan should be Sabah, but that's another story.
That's not even, it's federal territory, okay? I mean, Putrajaya should be, Selangor, but let's not even go there. So, but but at the same time, I mean, if you want to fight, the Labuan should be like Sarawak, well, closer, could be Brunei. Yeah, but at the end of the day, going back to your question, I mean, I think it's right that to each his own, but generally, I mean, there was what was it, the SEA Games in Laos? They had less sports because Laos could only take the sports there, and they added a lot of their sports and they knew they could win.
Yeah.
So might happen in that stage where they're like, oh, no rugby because we don't have rugby players, or no rhythmic gymnasts because the reasoning will be we don't have rhythmic gymnastics in our state, so you won't have that sport. So that's how you take advantage, or rather the hosts will have a say in what kind of sports goes into Sukma.
Just a bit related to the overall topic, but also kind of a tangent. Do you think there are certain I don't know how to describe it, freedoms that maybe we could have if it wasn't really so subjected to maybe like federal laws?
Well, when you say that, that's like saying, can we have beauty pageants where everyone takes part?
Yeah, don't we have that?
We don't have that.
In the whole country, you mean?
In the whole country, yeah.
But I mean, as a state, do you feel there are certain things that, like you say, to each his own, so that we could probably have if it wasn't for the norms of a federal or the norms of the country?
Okay, a lot of drinking games, drinking festivals, drinking
actually, now that you mention it, I feel
or tuak making, but we do have tuak festivals.
I feel like now that you brought that up, I feel alcohol licensing is one thing that is really, really hard to get in Malaysia.
Yeah.
So,
however, we are lucky in the sense that come on, I mean alcohol licensing is very hard to get because Malaysia as a whole is is in that way. But in Sarawak, we have people who make tuak. Tuak there's a very fine line because
that's a cottage industry.
It's not really. It's not. Is it alcohol? Is it Is it
I think they have special laws for that. But in terms of like manufacturing, I think the law here is that there's only a limited amount of licenses, so you have to buy an existing company. So whereas I know a lot of people here who would love to manufacture to bring up alcohol brands
and export.
And export.
I mean, we there was one recently. There was it a gin or
there's
local.
There's a few companies. I don't know. We've tried their gin. I mean, I don't know. We should bring it out next time. Or I mean, I should bring it out. But Then we have like other things like like we have carriers. We have obviously the beer, the Sarawakian beer. Is it 1602? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm trying to remember that. I would say 1902. Yeah, 1602. Yeah, and then things like that. So I'm not really sure about the like how they got their licensing, but from what I was told, it's really really difficult. And I don't know. I just thought like in an ideal world, maybe it should be a lot easier, at least in like East Malaysia. But that's just me.
Yeah, but then again, when it comes to East Malaysia, there's a lot of, especially Sarawak, anyway.
Yeah.
It's more Sarawak than Sabah, especially when it comes to this kind of thing. Which is why it's not about getting away with it. I think it's just unique to Sarawak, the fact that we have these kind of allowances, I guess you could say, of I wouldn't say freedom, because of the diversity of our own culture within Sarawak itself. The fact that you can't take this away from our local citizens, because it's part and parcel of the culture.
Yeah.
So when you say that we shouldn't have this, then that's going against the grain or against the culture. So it is accepted. Like I said, it's never been about which religion you are. It's more about what family you are and that the culture that you're in. But the biggest question was always asked, like you said, do we need to conform to the rest of Malaysia? I don't think so. It's what makes us unique, and it's and as much as and this Sugma has shown that not only are we capable of doing things that are probably as good as what's been done in Semenanjung or Peninsula Malaysia, especially with the way we organize the opening ceremony, but also in the way how we treat our, how we prepared ourselves prior to these kind of things. I look forward to, last year's Borneo Sonic was well, it was well attended. This year, people are already wanting tickets and wanting to go, and it's become even better because they've heard from experiences that people who have gone and from last year, and they go, oh wow, it's so different, and now it's helped enhance the Borneo Sonic for this year, and that's great. And of course, our Oktoberfest is a yearly thing. It happens in different, where can you find an Oktoberfest? It's not because of the alcohol or anything, but it's just done in a shopping mall, and the car park gets filled up with with tents and all that. It won't happen in because just getting the licenses, getting the permits to get that done in I sound like East Coast Malaysian. Get that done in West Malaysia, and you know how hard that is. Whereas for us here, and no one gets into a fight. No one gets upset. That was always the fear whenever they do it in West Malaysia. Here it's a normal occurrence. I mean,
Yeah, I always thought East Malaysia could be a very good test case for things like this. Yeah, whether to see if it messes up or if it does well, and then maybe other states can adopt.
I don't know whether it's correct for us to be a test case, because just the way we are in terms of the way we think and our mentality is very different to West Malaysia already. In some cases, we're also different to up north in Sabah, because we don't have that kind of.
I just think some things are just too politically charged to even try, in other states. Whereas once it's done in Sarawak, maybe multiple times, and you're it doesn't seem so bad. Maybe it could be adopted somewhere else. Maybe even things even adopting English in schools, things like that, where it was a really hot potato kind of issue. But
that's a federal issue, you see. The English, remember that time when we had a maths and science go to Bahasa, and then I was like, huh? It's like, how come it became an issue, And then, now we're going to have maths and science back to English.
Yeah.
So all those students who had to go through it in Bahasa, so what happens to them?
It was very political, So, and then I mean, the opponents of issues like that, they will say, oh, this is the outcome that's going to come out from a policy like this. But maybe Sarawak will be like, over the years you're going to show like, hey, it didn't turn out like that. Everyone's bilingual, everyone's perfectly fine speaking BM, and then like with a very high English like
Proficiency.
Proficiency, and then I mean, maybe it's the only way.
This is the thing that came out with that. There was a posting where why should we be learning English, blah blah, and all that. I didn't really get the gist of that because I only saw the post, but there was a big uproar about it because it was like, do you know what the whole thing was about? Did you read up about it?
No, I'm not really sure.
I mean, all I heard was, again, it was a big issue over in Semenanjung, I guess. It was like someone saying that, we shouldn't be learning English, is really bad for you, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I didn't really...
What was that post about?
I had no idea. Like,
it died a very quick death.
I mean, I kind of ignored the post. I mean, I tend to ignore posts like this where I just feel like you just take the stupidest thing that the stupidest person in the whole country said, and then you amplify it by 1,000 things as if it's supposed to mean something. I mean, people say stupid shit all the time, like, I mean, is it what he said is like that, important? But then again, I didn't really see it, so I could just be like wrong, totally wrong. But I suspect it's just, guy 9521 on like Facebook just saying something.
9521, what is that?
Yeah, I mean, like just some random username. I mean, it's
9521.
Yeah, or
guy
like,
9521.
Yeah, saying some
Were
shit.
You that
and then
guy?
just like got picked up by World of Buzz. And then, yeah, some guy just ranting on like Facebook. Like I mean, I don't think it's such a big deal.
No, but for someone to say something like that or put it up, do you think there are people who support that kind of rhetoric? I mean, that kind of...
Okay, just like putting that news aside, because I from what I remember, that news was also saying like don't learn science and math. So like, yeah, I mean, it can't be serious, right? I mean, I might have to look it up, but okay. But in terms of the language thing, yeah, I get that argument that says that we should learn BM because it's our common language, and which is I totally agree. I think everyone should be fluent in BM, and then that we should use language more, like improve the language in terms of using it for science and things like that. So improve usage and that. But yeah, I mean, I get that argument, but then I just thought, why not do both? I mean, we are multilingual anyway, right? And yeah, having done translating as a job, I can tell you there's a lot of translating to be done constantly, and there's not enough translators.
I know, it's actually, I have friends who make a heck of a lot of money being translators, not just, immediate translators and they got friends who work, in big corporations, and even at the UN, where people are specifically there just to do something. It's a big job because you are the one that's going to be able to really, and translating, imagine from Japanese to like to a different language, not just to English. Obviously, the lingua franca is always English when it comes to the world, but right now, imagine if it was Mandarin. Everyone learned Mandarin. You could. I mean, depends on the side of the war you want. So English. But translation is big, and it impacts on how how your translation comes up.
Yeah. I mean, I've done translating from English to Malay, as a job.
And it's hard.
Yeah, it's hard, and I can't imagine at the rate that just scientific knowledge is coming out. Just say AI, just in general, right? Who's going to translate all that and print it out into actual books and knowledge for just purely Malay speakers to consume? And then they like to reference Japan and China and countries like that, Germany, which is all in the top 5 lists of countries that release scientific papers, So until we're at that point, I mean, it's best we learn our language, we're a really small country, and yeah. But having said that, I think Malay is super important, and knowing like what Indonesia can become one day, I mean, why would we not want to learn Malay?
Yeah, well, Bahasa Indonesia, Bahasa Malaysia is very,
Yeah.
very similar in a lot of sense, except for the words like,
Yeah.
I'll give an example. I have to do this, like, especially up north or in Indonesia and Sabah, when you say pantat, it's actually ass, Like
Like
when we
butoh as
say,
well.
like, buto means need, in need.
Yeah.
So, or the word like soup bontot,
Yeah.
So we like, it's different. It's oxtail. It's not like, ass tail soup. So we laugh about it, but like for example, I'll give another example. 2K,
Yeah.
right? 2K. Remember Y2K millennium?
Yeah.
When they had the Y2K. The only people who were laughing was like Malanaos. I'll tell you why. If you understand Malana, what 2K means, I'm not going to translate it here, but yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll look it up.
Vagina. Okay.
I figured. Yeah. But I mean, to be able to like laugh at things like this, I mean, that's the beauty of being like, like Malaysian, like to be multilingual like this, like we can, just the fact like, you can say that means vagina. I mean, you could have easily said chibai, and we'll still laugh.
Well, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah. So, don't get me wrong. I think everyone should be fluent in BM. In Malaysia. Even in Sarawak. I mean, knowing, I know a lot of people who know Iban as a language because we have a base level in learning Malay. So, why would we not? I mean, whether Iban should be like an official language or taught in schools, that's a different case. But from what I understand, there's just no teachers. I mean, I would love, like, for my nieces and like siblings to like attend a proper Iban class, but as anything in Sarawak, we just lacked of the teachers and lecturers and things like that.
Well, actually, that's the one thing that I do have a friend. He does filming and stuff. He used to be a teacher as well, and he's trying to what's the right word for it? He's trying to preserve. He's trying to preserve the Iban language. So he does all these programs. He shoots. He was out on TVS recently, actually. So he's one of those people who wants to preserve the Iban language, the culture, and all that. And he's on this like mission to be able to have that. So what he's done is, I think he's asked everyone, through his social media, to tell him stories, to give him stories, and everything to do with like customs of, for example, of Gawai and all that, because apparently there are different customs to Gawai as well. So he's trying to gather all that information and do that. And I think it's a splendid job what he's doing right now. Sydney Atin. And he's doing really, really well in terms of getting all that information in. And it's a big job. He's also spoken to Iban professors about the language itself and how the language should be spoken, and how different kampongs and all that. It's like Bidayu, in different kampongs you have different dialects and totally different languages. It's like Malanaos as well, The Malana language has different stuff altogether as well. And it's really interesting that, we have this. And this is what I say when it comes to Sarawak, in terms of how we do stuff, our festivals, it's different because it's how we think is very different to West Malaysia. So it's never been about religion becomes the priority, but it's our family. When I say family, it's our culture, our customs, and how we treat each other. It is something that's so unique to Sarawak compared to the rest of Malaysia.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we should really get across, like at least through our media, through our movies, through our TV shows. I mean, that's why we have a channel. Yeah, so
So we're on this tangent of, you know, culture. What's so unique about um, our about Sarawak in terms of, you know, we started off talking about festivals and culture and all that, and obviously our sports, and then there's one thing you mentioned earlier is, you know, how we are different in the sense of how we behave, um, you know, but we also have a sort of marked difference between how we are with with Sabah as well, and that, you know, I guess it's political,
yeah,
because, you know,
maybe demographic change there as well,
Yeah.
and like politics as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's,
There's been talk, and I know I don't usually like talking about politics in our podcast, but there's a wind of change going on, where Sabah has talked about having a Borneo block. Now, this is a political thing, but they've seen now with Sukma, and, you know, you see all the, you know, what's so lovely seeing that younger generation, with Sabah and Sarawak, treating
Yeah.
each other like cousins, and then,
yeah,
you know,
we've seen the
you know,
videos.
'cause-
Yeah,
and the favorite song that everyone does, which I I don't really like the dance. You know,
Bagi kes
yeah.
politik.
And, you know, it's such a popular song
Yeah.
in East Malaysia. But you see this with the younger generation. It's so heartening to see this happening in because you see people don't understand how powerful sports is
Yeah,
in terms of getting people together.
yeah,
It transcends beyond, you know, religion, beyond language, beyond everything beyond. And the other thing that does it is also comedy. But sports has always been a unifying factor. We've seen that with Olympics, and now we're seeing it up close and personal in our faces with Sukma, which is why I think SEA Games is going to be great. But do you think we should have this Borneo block? And because there's two ways of looking at it: is to strengthen East Malaysia, or it is also as something to turn around to West Malaysia and go, hang on a minute, don't forget about us. You know, we are so strong in our way as well. What are your thoughts?
yeah. I mean, first I'd like to say, like, I love Sabahans. Like, living and working in KL, it was lonely for like the best of the days. But yeah, some of my closest friends there were like Sabahans, and they made life a lot easier there. And yeah, I mean, when you're talking about Borneo block, I mean, politically, I think, no, I wish it could happen, but it's obviously depends on who's gonna take charge of Sabah, whether there's like a, you know, UMNO or federal one involved, and it looks like any configuration of whoever takes over Sabah will have like either PH or like UMNO in it, or maybe BN, and then yeah, so whether they get to that, like, you know, full on local party in charge and stuff like that, I mean, I don't see it. But then again, you know, I don't know, that's Sabahan politics, anything can happen, right? But just the general Borneo identity, like, yeah, I just think, you know, there should be a lot more like joint cultural exchanges, even with like Kalimantan, you know. I just feel, yeah, I mean, there should be a lot stronger like Bornean identity. I mean, it probably does exist already, but not something that you see in the media, you know. But if you look at comments or like TikTok and stuff like that, yeah, I mean, obviously the sentiment is pretty strong, I would say. I mean, do you think that there should be like ways? I mean, like, for example, like, I remember you did the Tembawai Kanyuk show, right? I mean, shows like that, like, I mean, when you look at analytics, I'm sure there'll be like Indonesians picking up on it, you know. There should be a lot more cross-cultural things. And then we saw this Netflix show recently where they had this Borneo-centric story. It was an Indonesian, like a film, right? And yeah, I mean, it was like well received over here. I mean, it was really interesting to see like a film shot in, like, you know, the border towns of like Kalimantan. And yeah, I mean, there should be a lot more of that. I mean, you know, if this should be a look east policy for our media here, you know. instead of like catering to like, you know, like showing stuff that we already see on West Malaysian TV. I mean, why are we trying to be like another TV3, you know? I mean, that's just this is my thought. Yeah.
I reserve my case on the TV station, but yeah. I think you sort of reminded me. You asked me why I came back.
Yeah.
It's not just about Sarawak, and I you know in the last podcast I talked about the Borneo Games, creating a Borneo Games.
Yeah.
I do feel Borneo has so much to offer, and so much. It's a gem in its case. You know, people talk about Australia and all that. It's big and it has a, but Borneo is so much more concentrated. We have so much more where we are more tolerant, and that's the only time I'm going to use it, of our diverse culture.
Yeah.
You know, and I know we have, you know, they have cousins across the border who are the same people, essentially the same people, just different countries.
Yeah.
Different, same language. And the biggest eye opener for me was when this year's mini film festival that was held, organized by Unimas, obviously the 20th mini film festival. We had a Borneo category, and I was one of the jury, and we had films. Oh, I'm getting like goosebumps. Watching those films from Kalimantan. One of them won the Borneo category, Red Lips. I found fascinating. It was, and every other different issue about this was you can find anywhere around the world. But the way they handled it, it was a big eye opener for me. I mean, we've seen films from Jakarta and all that, Javanese films, you know, mainstream films. But to be able to see and get an inkling, or at least a point of view from how they live on the south of the border in a different country, and you go, and then you listen to their language and you go, hang on, they're the same people.
Yeah.
It's just that, and it's how we are. It's like, you know, it's interspersed with, ours is interspersed with Bahasa Malaysia, and theirs is with Bahasa Indonesia. But it's the same, essentially the same people. Yeah. I got a shock because we've so been drilled into our heads about, they're Indonesians.
Yeah.
And then I see these short films. Yeah. Hey, they're like, they could be Sarawakians.
Yeah.
But oh my God, it's Borneo.
Yeah.
And it was such an eye opener. And I was like, for me, I mean, maybe other people, you know, used to seeing it, but I'm to me this was education. This was brand new. Of course, I've been to Balikpapan before, back in, like, you know, late 2007, 2008 and all that. But I never got that kind of feeling. Yeah. Whereas here towards Pontianak, it literally are like, you know.
Yeah.
And I was talking to the filmmakers during the festival, and I was speaking to them. It was so funny because I was speaking Bahasa Malaysia, and they were speaking Bahasa Indonesia. And then at one point, it suddenly morphed into like very close to speaking Sarawakian, Bahasa Sarawak.
Yeah.
Or at least an amalgamation of that. And I was like, hang on a minute, we're the same people.
Yeah.
And we're just separated by borders and countries. Yeah. And fascinating.
Yeah, it's really interesting. That's the sense I got when I saw that Netflix film. I forgot what the title was, The Fog of.
Yeah, I think I've put that in my my list. I'm going to watch it.
Yeah,
it
and then
interesting.
when you see them, I mean, the first thought that I had is like, why can't we do something like that? You know, I mean, why aren't we doing something like that? And the second thought is like, I mean, when you hear that mixture of like Indonesian and like Iban that's like intersped in the film, it's like, I mean, we're essentially the same people, you know. I mean, there should be a lot more collaboration. You know, they should be consuming our media. We should go consuming their media. Yeah, and we should be having, like you said, there's Borneo Games. I mean, we have a gold medalist here. They have a gold medalist climber there. We have silver medalist diver here. I mean, we have world-class athletes on this whole island, you know? I mean, this is not like a school, like a sports day, right? I mean, Borneo,
Yeah, I mean, we have so much more to offer in terms of, you know, not just from Sarawak, not just, but at the end of the day, everyone likes to protect their borders. Everyone like Brunei, it is a country by itself on its own, and they've taken part. They've got their first gold medalist in 10 years in wushu. One of the guys just won
in Sukma, you mean?
Yeah, in Sukma. Yeah. After 10 years, the first gold medalist, and I think they also had a bronze medalist. I can't remember what sport it was, but it's these kind of things that allow people to understand what our country or what Borneo is like, and this is where this is the one time I'm gonna mention it. When I was in Timor-Leste, I felt like I was in Sarawak in a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yes, they may look different to us, but it's just, and they were they used to be under the Indonesians as well.
Yeah.
But the way they think and behave and the culture, although it's slightly different because they also have colourful customs and stuff, and the dances, and I'm like, hang on a minute, if you were to bring them together, there's some similarities in terms of, especially the whole big region. So, but because of how Borneo is, and it's the third largest island in the world, and the diverse cultures we have, we have in terms of a lot of things that we can export, not just our culture, not just our food, but our content.
Yeah.
And I feel that we're in a world where everything's connected and everyone knows what there's a heck of a lot of stuff in Africa still to be explored. So why not have stuff from Southeast Asia, meaning from Borneo, which we can also sell and export and so educate, because in terms of West Malaysia has its history alongside with Siam in Thailand and all that, but we're unique because we're literally an island by ourselves, and within that we also are so different to everyone else. And Sarawak and Sabahans are very lucky because although we're part of Malaysia, we're also sort of a country within ourselves as well. And you don't get that with any other country.
Yeah, I remember reading a long time ago this kind of a marketing interview with like Tony Fernandez, where he was like, he had this dream of creating this ASEAN identity, Whereas, I mean, it's probably a lot easier in a small way to do it in Borneo, which has literally like similar ethnic groups, similar demography, and very similar culture. Yeah, so in one small way of his vision of seeing this ASEAN identity, and this is like 3 ASEAN countries on one island. So I think it's an interesting idea.
Well, and also with the, with the Indonesian, and it is an administrative capital, Nusantara being built there, we have even more of a, in terms of influence, in terms of wanting to be able to work with Indonesia now.
Yeah.
I mean, because Jakarta has become, it will still be a capital, but it's different. But we will be able to, we have the pulse on Indonesia by being very close to them. Landmass this time. We don't need to fly there. Once you build the infrastructure, imagine the stuff. And also with Sabah, Sabah and Sarawak are in a very unique position in terms of how in terms of building the future, we're going to be the next, I don't know what it is, the next center of ASEAN, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's great. We're in a really great place right now because now, like you said, people are going to start looking east. Everyone's talking about wanting to do work in Sarawak, and especially everyone wants to have something to do with Sarawak right now. We're in a very unique position in terms of we should be wanting to work with Kalimantan now because that's where it's going to be. I mean, but there's one thing I am, after being around the world and working around the world, I'm loath to see us develop too fast. I think what makes us unique, and probably how Australia is in a lot of sense, is that we've maintained our environment. We don't need to have all the big cities with skyscrapers. That's not us. And for people who say that should be the way forward, it's not.
Well,
And now I think we've seeing other countries and all that, how they develop, how have become such an aging community and nation. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
We should maintain what we have and develop at our own speed. That's how I see it. But again, we're not politicians, but as a younger generation, and also seeing what's happened around the world, I feel that we should keep our uniqueness, our jungles and all that.
Yeah, I mean, we used to look at like a small population as a kind of a weakness for an economy, but then when you come to this age where, I mean, a lot of jobs may be like automated or like even like taken over by AI. I mean, maybe it's a blessing that we are like have a small. Of course, we need a lot of skilled labor coming in here, but maybe a small population with a high resource and income base, right? Sounds like a good deal.
Well, look at like Norway. I mean, the Scandinavian countries.
Yeah.
They have a small population,
Yeah.
but they're very rich.
Yeah.
So I think that's where
they're trying to model it from.
exactly. I think that's where the Premier is looking in terms of we don't need to have. We're also an aging population, by the way.
Yeah.
And we're getting older, and we don't have that. But it doesn't mean that we have to do a rapid growth and be the same as everyone else. Because the ease of travel now, you want that, go to KL, go to Singapore, enjoy it for a while, come back, because every Sarawakian always says, when I come back home, I'm so glad that we have our kolot meal, we have our laksa, our umai, blah blah blah, because it's still unique there. Imagine if that's all gone or it's become too commercialized. You'll be lamenting the fact that I wish we had those in the past. And even now, the older generation, like who's got this big Sheraton. Remember what it used to be, the Odeon Theatre, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, as much as we still want to do the SEA Games and all that, the reason why we want people to come over is to showcase the uniqueness of Sarawak rather than be like everyone else.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what makes us different to everyone, and that's what makes Sarawak unique. I guess that's the whole gist of this edition, this episode, I suppose, because we've never really talked about it. We've always skimmed the surface, blah blah blah, talked about my stuff and all that. But that's part of the reason why I came home, because I see this, and I feel that we have the potential to be such a big part of not just Malaysia but Borneo, and I still do feel Borneo is where we should be focusing on, because in the long run, those people will understand us better than people outside.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. And I think that's to finish off, I guess that's where we'll be in terms of for this episode. But I'm glad we talked about it, because it's something that I think that should have been discussed by people, especially those who don't understand.
It's something like we should talk about more. Maybe we should like take a trip to like IKN or one day or something like that. Yeah.
You know what? I need to go with you to Pontianak.
Yeah.
I think that's the trip of a lifetime for me. So on that note, you have been watching myself, Rashid Saleh, of course Jason Sim, aka the Kuchinite, and this has been the Rashid Saleh Show, or the RSS. Bye bye for now.
Bye.